Alright, hi there. So, welcome to the second episode of Middle Aged Metalhead. And I'd like to start off by saying thank you for the response to the first video. It was way more than what I was expecting. Thank you to all the people who subscribed. And hope you continue to tune in and like what I'm putting up and like what I'm talking about. So, for today, I thought I'd do a quick rundown of my top 10 favorite death metal albums. And death metal is something that, if thrash is my go-to genre in metal, death metal is probably pretty close to thrash in terms of my favorite genres. And it's something that I've grown up with since probably the time that I first heard Deicide, Autopsy, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse when I was about 14. So yeah, it's been a long way. And most of my favorites are predominantly from the 90s, because I am pretty much a 90s kid. So let's take a look at what's in store. So number 10 from 1998, an album that pretty much changed my mindset when it came to metal, Gorguts Obscura. I'd say for me one of the most important death metal albums ever. I mean, this album, the way the music is written, it's dense, it's almost impenetrable, especially with the first few listens. And once it clicks, you can't stop listening to it. I mean, Luke Lemay, for me, is a songwriting genius. And this album changed death metal for me. No two ways about it. Gorguts Obscura at number 10. Next up, number 9, a band from the UK, and this was a bit of a change for them, starting off as vegan grindcore maniacs and then moving into death metal with this album, Necroticism, Descanting the Insalubrious. And this also had the first appearance of Michael Amott in the band, and I think he wrote a couple of songs as well. And this is from 1991. And it's heavy, it's brutal, and it's also got the strain of melody running right through the album that makes the songs just really addictive. I mean, you've got stuff like Cockrell Jigsaw Quandary, of course, you've got Pedigree Butchery, you've got Forensic Clinicism, the Sanguine article that closes the album, 7 minutes long, and some really hard to pronounce songs, including Lavaging Expectorate of Lysergite Composition. So, it's a little difficult to take the song name seriously these days, but yeah, it's a fantastic album, no two ways about it. Number 8, and an album that, well, at least in the beginning, it was the album art that got me more than anything else. This was a band that was, for a long while, especially in my teens, as filthy as death metal got, along with maybe Autopsy, and that's Obituary's Cause of Death. John Tardy on vocals, absolute vocal god. I mean, this guy's vocals used to be sick. And then you must also have all of those urban legends, especially for Slowly We Rocked, which never actually had any lyrics, and how he used to chain smoke cheap cigarettes before recording that album, just so he could get that growl going with his throat. But this album just ramped everything up. I mean, James Murphy came in on guitar, which I think made a huge difference. And then you had songs like Infected, Body Bag, Chopped in Half, the Celtic Frost cover, Circle of Tyrants, then you had Dying. I mean, this album is just a death metal classic. Well, actually, in my opinion, all of these 10 albums are death metal classics, but this was a huge favorite growing up, and it's one of those albums that's never really stopped giving. Just a great album. Here's another album that, for number 6, another album that really, it was the artwork more than anything else that first made my eyes pop out and made me go, what the hell is this? Look at that. I mean, this is just a stunning piece of art. Immolation here and after, but the art, when I finally actually got to listen to the music was just phenomenal. I mean, this is one of those albums where I'd never actually heard anything like this uh, before Immolation came out, right? It was what you would call today maybe atonal, dissonant, and technical, all of that. But this really was the first for me, and it blew my mind. It also took a long while to get in. It was repeated listenings, reading the lyrics, and just staring at that artwork. Really magnificent art, and yeah, nailed to gold. Here and after, I feel nothing, towards earth, and another brilliant album from these death metal titans. I know you might like Close to a World Below better, or you might like Failures for Gods better, or maybe even Dawn of Possession, doesn't really matter. With those first four Immolation albums, you just can't go wrong. Fantastic stuff. Number 5, again from the UK, we've got Bolt Thrower. Fantastic artwork again. Now, Bolt Thrower is one of those bands that for the longest time, the only album I'd heard was Fourth Crusade, and that too I think was a really shitty tape-on-tape dub. And it was only in the 2000s really that I started to get these CDs and really started exploring the band as such. And I know Realm of Chaos is the acknowledged classic, but this album really gets me. As in the riffs, just there's this method to their songwriting that started developing on this album for me, where they're building riffs on riffs on riffs, and then going back to that original riff in the same song. And there's this momentum that's built up in their songs that is just unmatched. It's not particularly technical, I'd say, but there is something about their style of songwriting that is completely unique to Bolt Thrower. And at their best, Bolt Thrower really were completely unmatched. So number 5, this is number 6, and 1991, Bolt Thrower, War Master. So number 5, finally step away from the US and the UK and move over to Sweden. Entombed, Clandestine. Now, obviously, Left Hand Path is the acknowledged genre classic and one of the greatest death metal albums ever made, but this one will always be my favorite. There's just something about this, there's this thrashing intensity to this album, and some fantastic songs as well. LG Petrov's vocals and the songs, I mean, seriously. Living Dead, Sinners Bleed, Evelyn, Blessed Be, Stranger Eons, and that's the first half of the album. 5 incredible songs. Then you've got Chaos Breed, you've got Crawl, you've got Severe Burns, and you've got Through the Colonies. I mean, honestly, this album just rules. Can't really say anything else. Entombed, Clandestine at number 5. Number 4, and this is a band I love. The first 4 albums of this band, absolutely, love. And sometimes it's even hard for me to completely explain why I love this band. I mean, and yeah. So, Dear Side, the first album. Now, growing up again, 14, 15 years old, you're hearing all these stories of Glenn Benton and all of that, the highly controversial stuff that he was doing. And then you listen to the music, and this album in particular was scary, right? I mean, it was downright evil. Of course, once the internet came in and we grew up and we figured out that it was all just talk, and it was a bit of a disappointment, but this album still holds up. I mean, this, Legion, Once Upon the Cross, and Servants of the Light, just fantastic stuff. And This one right here, lunatic of God's creation, sacrificial suicide, oblivious to evil, dead by dawn, blaspherian. I mean, what can I say? If you're into death metal, this is pretty much one of the top tier albums. I mean, fantastic stuff. I remember Dead by Dawn, and one of the first songs that I tried growling along to ended up coughing my lungs out. And it's still, I mean, Benton in those early days was just vicious. Number 3, and another absolute classic growing up. Death, Human, Chuck Schuldeiner's finest moment, I'd say. And discography filled with fine moments. This one really just, I think it was almost like Death Mark II, Death version 2. For 1991, I mean, this album came out in 1991 and it still just sounds so fresh, right? I mean, this could be a 2020 release and nobody would be the wiser. Yep, Paul Masvidal on guitar, Steve Gojira on bass, Sean Reynard on drums. This is just a fantastic album. Death, Human. And I don't think ITP might be a little catchier, that is individual thought patterns, but Human just has this enormous depth to the songwriting that I think Death never reached again. So getting to the end of it, number 2, and an album that's, well, let me just show it to you. I mean, this is another one of those childhood things, right? So, Autopsy, Mental Funeral. Again, the first 4 autopsies, for me, there's very little to separate it. You've got another album with fantastic artwork, but you've got Severed Survival, you've got Mental Funeral, you've got Acts of the Unspeakable, and Shit Fun, and well, there are 4 fantastic albums. But this one in particular, it's raw, it's dirty. There really isn't a lot of what you would call melody. It's punk, it's grind, it's metal, it's death metal. And well, you've got Ryford's vocals, you've got these amazing songs, Twisted Mass of Burnt Decay, In the Grip of Winter, Torn from the Womb, Destined to Fester. I mean, holy crap, what an album. And finally, drum roll, number 1, the greatest death metal album ever made. And take a look at this. Out of the Madness, Morbid Angel. I mean, seriously, this album is, I would say, simple but complex. It's dynamic. It's incredibly heavy. The songwriting is just on point throughout these 40 odd minutes, and it's an album that, again, like Human, like Mental Funeral, like Altars of Madness, is just timeless. It could have been recorded in 2020, it could have been recorded in 1989. Yeah. Altars of Madness, Morbid Angel. That's my top 10 death metal albums. Now, remember, these are my top 10, not yours. So if you have differing opinions, feel free to comment, fight, flame, do whatever you want. Yeah, that's pretty much it from me, my 10 favorite death metal albums. And we're rounding that off with Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness. Have a good one, guys. Stay safe. Subscribe, ring the bell icon for notifications, drop a comment, share the videos, do whatever you want with it, and yeah, have a good one. Stay safe. Cheers.